let's get into it. Let's start this whole thing. It was win number 2 for Max Verstappen. It was the second Grand Prix win of this Formula One season, and Max Verstappen keeping himself very squarely in this World Drivers' Championship conversation. The current standings as we sit: Oscar Piastri still leading the way at 146 points, finishing P3 this past weekend with a tire offset to Lando Norris, who is second in this World Drivers' Championship, who finished second in this last Grand Prix weekend. Max Verstappen, though, hanging in there at 124 points. We only have 22 points separating our top 3 in this World Drivers' Championship. George Russell's kind of hanging in there. Hasn't quite reached triple-digit territory quite yet, sitting at 99 points. But we have the chance to really see this thing go the distance this season. We have an opportunity to really, have a full-on 3-way championship battle. And if Mercedes can figure their situation out, maybe we might have another contender in the mix, but maybe not quite yet this season. And we're going to talk about Mercedes plenty a little bit later in this episode. But Red Bull are doing absolutely everything they can to keep Max Verstappen squarely in this championship, to keep him happy, to keep the Dutchman in high spirits before they walk into this next regulation in 2026 alongside the Ford partnership for their own power units they're going to be making in-house, kind of a 70-30 situation, Red Bull carrying a lot of the weight there. But Red Bull even bringing upgrades, a little bit track specific, but overall upgrades even this weekend. They've not been shy at throwing more resources at a Max Verstappen championship campaign this year because they have no idea what the future even holds. And bringing an engine cover, a rear suspension, and a rear corner in Imola. Max, though, at the end of the day, is driving the hell out of that car and is arguably the 3rd fastest this season as well. He's been making the McLarens work for every single thing that they have to get. Slowing down Oscar and Lando in Miami, keeping the McLarens away in Japan en route to a first top step of the season for Red Bull. Maybe a little bit picturesque, a little bit of a moment between them and Honda to get that win in Japan. But if not for a 5-second penalty in Saudi Arabia at Jeddah Corniche, it's very possible that Max Verstappen has a 3rd win to his name this season and could very well be much higher up within this trio, with this 1, 2, 3 in the World Drivers' Championship. The biggest thing stopping Max Verstappen, at least in my personal opinion, from pulling away from the McLarens really is the car and the infrastructure and its operating window. And with the recent enhancements and recent upgrades that we've seen Red Bull bringing to this year's car, I think the feeling from Max after Imola was that their operating window has broadened out a bit, has widened up a bit. And honestly, if that's the case, I don't see any reason why Max Verstappen can't keep himself in this championship battle throughout the rest of the season. McLaren also having to develop their car the rest of the way. We've still got a lot of racing to go. 17 Grand Prix weekends still to go with a smattering of sprints throughout the rest of this season. So the question really becomes, with all the resources that Red Bull's putting into this championship push, within all the resources and all the effort and the hell of a talent that is Max Verstappen, still pretty undeniably the best driver on the grid, what's going to stop the Dutchman? What's going to hold them off? That operating window being kind of that question week in, week out. If the setup is correct, I think he has an absolute chance. If McLaren are a little bit off the beat, he also has a chance, And the question kind of starts to come back towards the Papaya group. Can McLaren hold off the Flying Dutchman? So far, so good, but I think things could really be better throughout this season. With 2 number 1 drivers, you don't have a clearly defined championship front runner, at least not through the first 7 stages. And of course, Oscar Piastri is leading the way, but we understand how momentum and fortunes fare within this sport. We understand that maybe there are just circuits that are going to be a little bit more tailored towards Lando Norris's driving style, maybe a little bit more towards Oscar Piastri's driving style. The deficits that did exist last year with Oscar Piastri to Lando Norris, in that maybe the qualifying pace just wasn't quite there, seem to have been made up this year. And so far, of course, Piastri seems to be a bit ahead of Lando Norris with that clutch factor, the unfazed by the pressure factor, but Lando Norris obviously having some lacking moments as well. But being P2 in this championship within that 22-point margin, Lando Norris is still a factor within this championship as well. And because they're splitting all these points, because these results effectively are being chipped away at one another, there isn't somebody that's so clearly defined that McLaren are putting all their resources and all their backing into that one true championship contender this season. You might see yourself having a moment where both the drivers are kind of taking away from each other, opening up that window to let somebody else sneak through. Max Verstappen keeping himself right there in that window. Not saying it's absolutely going to happen. If you asked me to put my money down on it, who was going to win the championship this year, I think I would still say Oscar Piastri. He's driving the hell out of the McLaren so far. He's the only driver that's got over 3 wins. He's got 4 this season, and he was still the pole sitter in Imola. So as far as everything is concerned, McLaren still, again, have the best car. They still have a fantastic duo. Right now, they seem very poised for the moment. But again, I think Red Bull are going to make them work for it. And as a team, I think that McLaren still have at least one more big hurdle to overcome this season that could keep this fight for Max Verstappen, alive. That could keep this championship battle, wide open. And it's the flexi wing clampdown that we're going to see, not this upcoming weekend in Monaco, but the following weekend in Spain. That's where Red Bull feel like they can really even the playing field. They've been developing with this in mind. The question mark is really going to go back towards McLaren. Have they been able to account for this within all of their engineering? The technical lead there, Rob Marshall, has he been able to factor this as far as their operating window and seeing what exactly the McLarens are going to be able to do for the rest of the season? Obviously, this is a massive organization. It's a massive team. There's a lot of infrastructure here. There's a lot of brilliant minds that are working behind the scenes at McLaren. But understanding how crucial front wing aerodynamics, the first point of contact with the air that moves over the car, understanding and knowing exactly how that airflow is going to affect everything else behind it. We've talked extensively about the brake advantage that McLaren have when it comes to their braking systems, their rear braking systems, funneling air to keep the tires cool, to keep the brakes cool as well throughout the course of a race. That was what gave them a 33-second win in Miami. If all of that is affected, if there's a domino effect of this front flexi wing that's no longer flexible enough to create all that extra airflow, all that extra oxygen flow to go back towards the rest of the components of the car to make sure the cooling is all squared away, maybe that's a false step. And that keeps this this championship window wide open for Max Verstappen, for maybe Mercedes as they continue to develop, for maybe a Ferrari to sneak back into the picture. And if there's one thing for sure this year, is that clean air is the name of the game. Whoever leads the race early has a fantastic opportunity to pull away. If McLaren are at the front of the field, that's going to give them the best opportunity week in, week out, no matter what. Max Verstappen's more than willing to take advantage of opportunities, as we saw in Imola, that lap 1, turn 1, insane maneuver that we saw from Max Verstappen. One of the highlight moments so far this season, among a number of highlight moments this season, but getting that clean air advantage, getting out in front of the McLarens helped him build up a gap insanely quickly. And why exactly is the clean air such a major factor? If you're not quite certain of this is the way at least I understand it. With all the excess heat coming from the cars ahead, it's going to bog down engine performance. It's going to especially if the gap is big enough where the trailing car can't use the DRS window once it's open. Having that clean air out front, no excess heat, no excess flak, no excess aerodynamic, more excess aerodynamic turbulence coming off the back of a car ahead. If you're outside of that DRS window as well, being a second back, it's going to make a lot of a difference because then you're just taking on extra flak. You're not quite getting that aerodynamic push that, having somebody punching a hole in front of you normally would. By having that clean air, you're getting all that fresh air, it's a lot cooler. It's going to help keep the components in the operating window that you want them to be. And again, if you're outside of the DRS window, having that active, if you have that lead initially, it's a pretty good chance you're going to keep it throughout the rest of the way. So winning on Saturdays, converting on Sundays, with this close of a championship, it's looking crucial.